Have you ever sat on your porch at sunset and realized how quiet life becomes in old age? It's not the silence of absence. It's the kind of stillness that makes room for reflection. A silence that lets you finally hear your own thoughts, unfiltered, unhurried. And in that silence, many of us begin to wonder, did I spend too much of my life chasing what didn't matter? I know I did. My name is Eleanor Brooks, I'm 74 years old, and I live in a small town just outside Bend, Oregon, where the mountains rise gently in the distance and time moves a little slower than it used to. I've learned that the things I held on to the tightest, approval, control, relationships, regret, were the very things stealing my peace. And so today, I want to talk to you not about doing more, but about doing less. 5 things you can stop trying so hard at, and in return, gain something far more valuable, a lighter heart and a freer spirit. Stay with me. This might just change the way you live your next chapter. 1. The less you worry about being liked, the more you remember who you are. When I was younger, I lived in a world full of expectations. Expectations from my parents, my friends, my colleagues, and from the people around me. I didn't just want them to like me, I wanted to be accepted, to be valued. I remember once, when I was 45, changing the way I dressed just because I was afraid that my coworkers might think I wasn't appropriate for the work environment. I wore dark-colored outfits, spoke more softly, and everything I did was just to blend in. But the more I did this, the more I felt like I was losing myself. Gradually, I realized one important thing. Seeking others' approval is not the ultimate goal in life. When you worry too much about what others think, you miss out on the most important thing, loving yourself. In fact, there were times I would look at myself in the mirror, wearing clothes I loved, not because anyone else thought they were fashionable, but because they made me feel good. And I felt lighter. When you start living authentically, you'll be surprised at the freedom that you gain. No more second-guessing, no more worrying about meeting everyone's expectations. You are you, and that's the greatest gift you can give yourself in the years ahead. 2. The less you force relationships, the more love flows naturally. I used to be the person who tried to keep every relationship in my life intact. I wanted everyone to feel I cared. I wanted to make sure that my loved ones never felt distant. I spent countless hours making plans, visiting, organizing family dinners, and I did this tirelessly, even though sometimes it left me exhausted. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that not every relationship is meant to be held on to. Some relationships are meant to end, not because they weren't important, but because they no longer serve us in the ways we need. And strangely, when I let go of these relationships, I found that the connections that remained felt more real, more genuine, without me having to try. One example is Marge, my neighbor, whom I met after my husband passed. We didn't have decades of history together, but what we shared was an incredible sense of honesty and presence. She didn't expect anything from me, and I didn't have to work hard to keep her as a friend. And that's when I realized, when we stop forcing relationships that no longer bring joy, we make room for connections that truly matter. If you're struggling to hold on to relationships that feel one-sided or draining, let them go. You will find that life feels lighter and more joyful when you surround yourself with the people who truly care about you. No strings attached. 3. The less you try to fix others, the more you finally heal yourself. There was a time when I thought that love meant fixing people. That if I loved someone enough, helped them enough, gave enough advice, they would find their way. I did this with my son, Daniel, when he was battling addiction in his 30s. I worried, I corrected, I begged him to make better choices. I wrote him long letters filled with advice, thinking that if I just said the right things, he would change. But here's the hard truth. People don't change unless they're ready. And no amount of pushing, advising, or worrying will make a difference if they aren't open to it. There came a moment when I realized that I couldn't carry someone else's journey for them. That was the moment I learned to let go of the weight of trying to change others. Letting go of this responsibility didn't mean I stopped caring. It meant I stopped trying to control their path. I began focusing on what I could control, my own choices, my own peace of mind. And as I did, I found the healing I had been desperately seeking for myself. You can love someone deeply without carrying their burdens. You can offer support, but ultimately, it's up to them to make the change. When you stop trying to fix people, you create space to heal yourself. 4. The less you try to control life, the more beauty you notice in it. When I was younger, I was a planner. I had my days, my meals, my vacations, and even my conversations mapped out. Everything needed to be just right, or I felt uneasy. I thought that controlling everything meant I was in charge, and that gave me a sense of safety. But then life threw a curveball at me. My husband, Walter, was diagnosed with cancer. No matter how much I prepared or planned, nothing could prepare me for the changes that came. His illness, and eventually his death, changed everything. I realized that life cannot always be controlled. In those first few months after Walter passed, I felt completely out of control. For the first time in my life, I had no idea what tomorrow would bring. But something beautiful happened. I started noticing the little things, the sunlight filtering through the trees, the sound of birds singing in the morning, the peaceful walks I took in the park. I began to realize that life is beautiful in its unpredictability. The more I tried to control, the more I missed. When I let go of the need to have everything figured out, I began to see the world in a whole new light. The beauty of life lies in its imperfection. So let go. Stop trying to micromanage every little detail. The beauty you're seeking is already there. You just need to be present to see it. 5. The less you carry regrets, the more room you have for joy and legacy. Regret is a powerful force. We all have things in our past that we wish we could change, words we wish we'd said, chances we didn't take. I'm no exception. I'll never forget the time I had a falling out with my sister, Marie, over something trivial. We stopped speaking, and months went by without any contact. Then, one morning, I received the news that she had passed away unexpectedly. The weight of regret was unbearable. I kept asking myself, why didn't I just make the first call? Why didn't I forgive her sooner? But I came to a point where I realized that regret only holds you captive. I can't change what's gone, but I can make sure that I don't let the past stop me from creating a beautiful present. I took a moment to write Marie a letter, one I would never send. I poured out all my thoughts and feelings, and then I burned it. I didn't burn it to forget, but to release myself from carrying the guilt. You see, we all have regrets. But we don't need to carry them forever. We can choose to release them, and in doing so, make space for the joy that is meant for today. So here's what I've learned in my 74 years. Life doesn't require more effort to be good. It requires less. When we let go of the weight we carry, whether it's trying to please everyone, fix others, control the outcome, or live with regret, we free ourselves to embrace what really matters. We free ourselves to live lighter, love deeper, and appreciate every single moment. I hope this message helps you reflect on the things you can start to release from your life. What are you still holding on to? What are you ready to let go of? Because when you choose to release what no longer serves you, that's when you make space for the life you truly want to live. Thank you for sharing this time with me today. If any part of this resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What will you release to make more room for joy and peace in your life? And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to this community where we embrace life at its most peaceful, joyful, and fulfilling. I'm Eleanor, and I'm so grateful to have shared this journey with you today.